All right, let's talk a little bit about old school bench press training. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And this is stuff, I've kind of discussed this in the past a few times, but it's always an interesting topic because it really applies well to raw bench pressing, which means, without using lifting equipment, no bench shirts, just coming in and just raw dogging the strength. And interestingly enough, I've always heard Louis Simmons discuss this before in seminars, even though he was kind of the king of equipped powerlifting, right? King of equipped powerlifting. He still discussed this a number of times, and I've seen a number of different lifting historians talk about this. And a couple of key points that need to be made when we talk about old time, and I'm talking the 50s, the 60s, that sort of time period, because even the bodybuilders and everyone still bench press. They cared about having a big bench press. But back then, a lot of those guys, they realized that they needed really strong shoulders and upper chest. So what you tended to see, and again, I've heard Louis Simmons specifically talk about this, that those guys tended to split their training, their pressing training, into thirds. And they would do, a third of their pressing flat bench, a third of their pressing incline bench, and then a third of their pressing is overhead work. And it was mostly then done with barbells. Not saying there wasn't some dumbbells and other stuff for hypertrophy and bodybuilding, but as far as their actual real strength training goes with that stuff, they did that. And those guys really prioritized things like their upper chest, things like their deltoids, because what we know is that those things really help you get out of the bottom a little bit more, or right around the middle of the bench. Those areas where we tend to stick when you don't have a bench press shirt and you're just a raw bench presser. We tend to stick there, about that 4, 5, 6 inches off the chest. And if you really think about what's happening there, look at the muscles involved and look at the bar path. Okay, and then we're going to talk about grip width in a minute too, and flat back. But let's look at those for a minute. Anyone who's studied the bench press closely knows that that's usually where the bar transitions, right? So we call it the J shape because you're not really going to truly press in a true straight line. Okay, and what's been noted with a lot of bench pressers, when this was studied about 20 years ago, they filmed different bench pressers from the side and with a camera and then slowed it down and looked at the bar path. And what they noted is that the more elite the bencher got, between a novice bench and 200, a strong powerlifter doing 4, and then they take like Bill Kazmaier doing 600. And what they noted is that the stronger the bench presser was, the closer to the chest the bar drifted towards the face. So in other words, a novice, it didn't go till close to the lockout. It was around the middle a little bit more, for really advanced powerlifters. And then ultra elite guys like Bill Kazmaier, he was benching like 600 at the time. Okay, it drifted towards the face just a few inches off the chest. Like when he got about 4 or 5 inches off the chest, that bar shifted a couple inches forward over towards the face. Well, that starts to replicate a lot of the bar path of the incline bench. Okay, do you see where we're going with this? Pecs get you off the chest, right? Pecs are everything for getting right off the chest and for getting that speed and power. Like this is understood, this is known, definitely with a raw bencher. But when you hit that transition point, there's more upper chest and then front delt starts getting involved. That's where things like incline benching, that's where things like overhead press come in. And the same thing with the overhead. People could argue, well, the incline would be better suited, and I agree, but the incline would be better suited for that, but the overhead pressing helps the incline. Okay, the overhead press is an accessory for the incline, and it will absolutely help you get stronger at the incline. And if your incline goes up, you're going to transition through that point a lot better, and you're going to blast past it. So those old timers, they did an even mix. So if they did whatever 4 sets of bench a week, they did 4 sets of that, 4 sets of incline, 4 sets of overhead press, whatever they happened to do. But they just kind of split it up evenly. Okay, now the end result of that is those guys had really aesthetic upper chest, front delt tie-ins. You saw a lot of that back in the golden era. Those guys really developed that area because it's important for aesthetics. So it was a double win for them, right? It helped give them a big raw bench press, and it helped do that. Now the other thing is all those guys did wide grip. They did a lot of flat back, and those guys didn't do big powerlifting arches. They didn't really do a lot of closed grip benching. Some of the stuff you'll see them with shirts and, close gripping with boards and all this tricep work. No, they focused on their chest. Okay, so that meant they didn't run big arches. They had wider grips. Pinkies on the rings are wider, like I'm doing there, right? So that they put a deep stretch on the pectorals at the bottom, and it helped really develop the chest. Helps give you that wide, powerful chest, because all of that wide grip, especially on the flat bench, is going to build that whole middle and lower pec a lot. It's going to thicken you up, and that's also, incidentally, what's going to help you power through the bottom. That's going to help you power through the bottom of the bench press, okay? And that is what you were looking for. So when you start looking at the overall effect here, they benched wide, they inclined wide, a lot of them overhead pressed wide. You see a lot of the strict pressers who are chasing a max strict press, doing that real close grip to really drive the triceps through the top. But if you're trying to build the upper chest, trying to really build the shoulders themselves, even going wider on that overhead press is beneficial. But definitely when it comes to building the chest, this works. And the result of that, look how many of those guys from that era had big benches, raw benches, not, more of the modern power lifter idea with a big arch and all that, okay? They had big flat grip benches, okay? They tended to have really well-developed chest all the way from the bottom up to the top, right? You saw great chest development, but then we saw that thick, full upper chest. We saw the wide shoulders. You'd always see those front delt pec tie-ins, okay? And what I'm suggesting from all this all created a synergy. And those guys naturally knew, because they benched wide, they could tell where they felt stuff. They knew that a lot of those areas where it felt weaker, right, that the incline and the overhead work really seemed to help those areas, because you would feel those areas strained because they maxed on their benches all the time. So a lot of those guys, they'd come out and max all the time. They didn't think of it from a programming, well, we can't max too often. No, they just came in and maxed, and then they do their rep work and pump work. Okay, and it worked. These guys had great physiques. They had great bench presses, right? Big benches were normal. I mean, even Reg Park back in the 60s, as a bodybuilder, guy had like a 500-pound bench press, 500-pound floor press, okay? Right? These guys had elite benches oftentimes as bodybuilders because they cared about it and they realized the mind-muscle connection and what muscles were involved because they could feel them. So again, to recap this, these guys all focused on a nice split of wide grip, flat back benching, incline benching, overhead pressing, right? And they prioritized them kind of in that order, but all of them got worked. All of them got worked, and they did a lot of wide grip, a lot of flat back. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.